Buzzfeed, what in the ever-living are you smoking? This story, Jeffrey Toobin can't be the only person cranking it out on work Zoom calls. How hasn't this happened already? Says Scotchy Cowell, BuzzFeed News reporter. BuzzFeed, of course, always bringing the hard-hitting news reports because you may have heard. The other day, the story was that anti-Trump CNN analyst and New Yorker magazine writer Jeffrey Toobin whipped it out while he was on a Zoom business meeting call. Apparently, they were doing some kind of election scenario thing. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have breaking news. Actually, it's not breaking at all. The story came out yesterday. He wasn't just whipping it out. He was cranking it out. I'm sorry. This is not a family-friendly segment. I'm going to get in trouble for this on YouTube, but it needs to be said. Now, listen, normally, I'm not one to do another follow-up segment where I'm like, here's an update. He didn't just expose himself. He was cranking it, right? This dude was on a work phone call with other journalists, thought he was muted, and started cranking it in front of everybody. Woo! Oh, man, talk about life over. Now, the craziest thing, and the real story here, is that BuzzFeed News just published a story claiming it's normal. Everybody does it. How have we not seen it more? I mean, maybe 1,000 people would be cranking it out while in a business meeting. Are you nuts? Is this what goes on at BuzzFeed? This is what? Now, I'll tell you this, man. Here's what you do, Jeffrey. You take your computer, you shut it down. You take your phone, you put them in the freezer. You go downstairs into the darkest corner of your house. Look over your shoulder several times. If you're ever planning on doing something like this again, because you don't, BuzzFeed actually entertaining the idea that how hasn't this happened already? I'll tell you, BuzzFeed, because it is not normal to be on a business meeting phone call and start, pulling one out or rubbing or whatever it is you do. Here's what they write. I mean, who among us, Yesterday was a fun day on media Twitter, routinely the worst of all Twitter subcultures. That's true, actually. Earlier on Monday, Vice reported that writer and CNN legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin had been suspended for whacking it on a Zoom call that took place last week between New Yorker staffers and WNYC. According to Vice, the call was an election simulation featuring many of the New Yorker's biggest stars. Yeah. Among others, at one point, Toobin seemingly joined a secondary call, lowered his camera towards his towards his junk, and allegedly, and I believe this is the technical term here, cranked it real good. That's right. Cranked it. He left the call, then later returned, apparently unaware that colleagues caught the whole thing. Oh, no. Toobin told Motherboard he didn't know he was visible on the call while allegedly making mayonnaise. Loath as I am to relish someone else's mini scandal, this one is particularly tremendous. It has everything. A high-profile media person, his wang, a Zoom nightmare come to life, and an inexplicable election simulation that remains unexplained through all of this. Here's a good tweet. The new game is to replace every New Yorker cartoon caption with, quote, Jeffrey Toobin took out his dick on a Zoom. No, he whacked off. He was whacking off. It really does work, though. Most striking in all, though, is how bizarre it is that we haven't read 1,000 stories like this during the pandemic. We're almost finished with our 7th full month of quarantine, a hellscape of endless Zoom happy hours. No one likes them, and I'm glad we all seem to agree. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't relate to these people because my life is kind of normal. Like, I went out to eat the other day. I went out to eat at a restaurant because they're open where I am. I guess if you're in New York and literally every journalist is in New York, then yeah, you're living in your, escape from New York apocalypse. Haven't we all done something on a work call like that? Haven't we all? Wow. In normal circumstances, we'd never do during a meeting. Let he without sin cast the first stone. The benefit of working from home is in the comfort to do whatever you want. Endless snacks without judgment, cigarette breaks at your leisure, real housewives on all goddamn day. Some of you, I'm sure, have turned your video off for a brief moment during a video conference, take a big, hearty pull off a joint, and turn it back on when the smoke finally dissipated. What is wrong with these people? No, I have never been on a work call and been like, let me go crank one out while y'all are talking. Let me go smoke up. What? Are you people insane? You don't do any of that stuff on a work call. Is that what they're doing? Maybe that's why I didn't get along working at Fusion and wanted to leave after so early, because these people were too busy cranking it while I was trying to get work done. Apparently so. She says, I, of course, have never done this, as I am a good employee and have never done any drugs at all. That's kind of the joke. My review is next week. Please be cool. But it would be naive to think that most people aren't engaged in some effery during a work Zoom. That's the benefit of all this time working from home. The aberration in our routine allows for deviations in our day, which can include pleasure. Right. You're going to tell me you've never taken a quick 3 minutes midday to crank your hog on a business phone call with other people, and you're like, let me just mute this real quick, and while I'm listening to people talk, you just got to understand about Jeffrey Toobin. Who is he cranking it to? Okay, because like he's on a call, right? And there's ladies on the call. I'm assuming he's into ladies, Otherwise, do your thing. It's all you. Just not on a work phone call. Was he like looking at videos of his female colleagues and going at it, and they were watching? Apparently, there's another viral video of a guy who did this. He presses the mute thing, and then it goes away, and it comes right back, and he didn't realize, and he grabs like tissues and like lotion, and they're like, no, and they all like bail out. Crazy. Here's what she says. You're going to tell me that you've never cranked your hog, mashed your meat, butter your own muffin? There's so little joy left in our lives. Are we not at least owed the time to toot our own horns? Buzzfeed lady, are you single? I think this perspective comes from somebody who's single, because, if you're in a relationship, you'd probably just, do relationship stuff, adult things with your adult friend. I mean, maybe not during an active Zoom call where your video is still on, time and place, I suppose. Is this for real? Like, I understand this is meant to be a silly, funny article. They're like, totally write something funny about Jeffrey Toobin, anti-Trump CNN analyst, cranking it out on a Zoom call. It is funny. That's why I'm doing a segment about it. But the only reason I'm following up is because BuzzFeed is acting like it's a normal thing. Maybe this is what truly divides us in the culture war. And I mean that half jokingly. Like, are there seriously people who do things like this? That to me is nuts. She says, but as our home lives and work lives have fused more and more, it was inevitable that the cracks in our professional demeanors would start to show. The slow ebb of our professionalism is becoming visible in 100 little ways. Bringing our pets to work calls, showing up in loungewear with no makeup. I mean, like, I guess, chewing on stale bread. Do you not take your job seriously? You know what, man? I'm gonna totally deviate and just rag on the socialists right now. I take my work seriously. There are periods where, you know what I do? Like when I'm rendering a video or uploading it, I have a PlayStation. I'm playing Spelunky 2. Just came out. It's fun. It's a mindless little game. It takes a few minutes. And then when the render's done, I get up and I go back to work. I'm not going to be in a business meeting phone call being like, I'm just playing video games. I sit down. We get the work done. We go back to then we go eat and we live our lives. What I see from articles like this, to totally rag on BuzzFeed, and I understand they're kind of joking, is that the perspective they have on this, like it's totally normal that we don't dress up, that we've gotten lazy. I work from home. I've never gotten, I always make sure I put on my clothes. I always do my work. Maybe that separates me from, I don't know, the staffers at BuzzFeed or whatever these journalists are. It sounds like they're all phoning it in. You know what I mean? They don't take their job seriously. They don't want to take their job seriously. They want to wear a bathrobe and eat stale bread on camera. Some of them, I guess, want to crank it out on camera. I take my work seriously. I get up. I start planning my day. I work. I get dressed. I sit down. I do work. That's nuts to me. She goes on to say that the details around Toobin's act only serve to heighten the tale. What in the effing world is an election simulation? Is it a coincidence that oh, this is so stupid. Listen, Jeffrey Toobin, he's this, hoity-toity, high and mighty. Trump is a racist guy, and he was whacking off to his colleagues. That's what's creepy about this dude. He's watching a video of there's probably some woman being like, thank you all for coming to the meeting. We're going to be discussing what happens on election night. And he's like, that's what he's into. The people at BuzzFeed, they need to understand the construct of a joke. Now, my first assumption was they were just trying to write something that was funny and trying to making an assumption about what's relatable. Maybe this is relatable to BuzzFeed and leftists and things like that. It's not to me because I don't do things like this. I mean, heavens. You know what my vice is? Like I mentioned, I play Spelunky 2. Sometimes I'll eat some banana chips. Yeah, you put a little peanut butter on it. They're great. We got a big old jar of them. It's a snack. That's a normal workplace behavior. Like I've been to all these offices and they have like chips and M&Ms and like drinks and coffee. And then you'll be like, I got a few minutes, and you'll go in and you'll grab some banana chips and you'll be hanging out, drinking water as like a video's uploading or something. I treat my work like my work. I take it seriously. What about the pandemic and the fact that we're not in person has shifted these people into a space where they don't take their jobs seriously anymore? I'll tell you, they never took their jobs seriously. That's the point. I get it. She's joking. She's trying to be funny, and that's fair. I respect that. But thinking about what Toobin did, and think about the fact that there are many people who show up to their Zoom calls, half-assed, just says to me that they never wanted the job in the first place. They don't want the job now. They didn't want the job then, but they need the money, so they're pretending to want, to care about it when they're there for the sake of keeping the job. But when they're at home, they treat it very, very unseriously. That's messed up. I'll tell you this. If you ever want to find a good hire, track their Zoom meetings and look for the person who's taking the job seriously and is dressed up and wants to get the job done. The people who are sitting around their lounge wear or whatever, I wouldn't hire them. Whatever. Well, best of luck to Jeffrey Toobin. Weird, but sure. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up in a few minutes, and I will see you all shortly.